Hello, my name is Sabina Khan, barrister and founder of the Women in Gowns Wigs project. I'm here today in conversation with the Honourable Mrs. Justice Maura McGowan. Maura is a High Court judge appointed in 2014, former chair of the Bar Council in 2013, and future treasurer of the Middle Temple. We're here today to mark 25 years of Advocate. Maura, we're here today to celebrate 25 years of Advocate. What do you see is the future of Advocate for the next 25 years?
In one way, I'd love to be able to say we don't need Advocate anymore because everybody is represented and nobody needs pro bono assistance, but that's clearly not the position. And people carry on needing the services, and so the services have to be provided by the legal profession to those who need them, particularly in tribunals where there isn't legal aid and there isn't funded representation. People need to be able to enforce their rights, to protect their rights, and to that end they need the assistance of the legal profession.
The legal profession is facing quite a lot of challenges. What would you say to those just starting out and to those who have been practicing for a while? What's the reason as to why barristers should get involved in pro bono work or indeed continue with pro bono work?
Well, it seems to me that there are two sides to this. One is they should do the work because it is a good thing to do. It is giving something back. Anybody who manages to qualify as a lawyer is well educated, intelligent, well trained, and they owe something back to society. But the other side of it is actually it's a good training ground for people. It's a good way of building experience in an area that you're not familiar with. And so if you are, for example, a criminal practitioner and you want to start doing employment or some aspects of public law, housing, family perhaps, it's a great way of getting an introduction. And so nobody's going to instruct you with no experience behind you. But if you can do some pro bono work, you can put the fact that you've done a case on your CV. It actually helps you as well as the fundamental point that you're actually helping members of the public. So it's win-win on that basis.
Are you able to give us any examples of pro bono work that you've seen from a judicial perspective?
I don't sit in family, so I don't see as many unrepresented litigants as some of my colleagues, but I am very much aware, for example, in the Chancery Division, of the work that the CLIPS scheme does, the Chancery Litigants in Person scheme, where people are assisted through their hearings, through their cases, and I know from my colleagues that that's fantastic assistance to the court. I see it most of all, I think, in the Emergency Applications Court through services provided by the Support Through Court group. And that tends to be moral support. It tends to be making sure that somebody knows where to sit, knows when to speak, has some help in marshalling their arguments. It's not legal advice, strictly speaking, but it gives people the confidence, or a bit more confidence, to be able to take their case in front of a court and to put forward what it is they actually need to say. Because with the best will in the world, litigants in person don't always know what the point is. They may have a very good point, but it sometimes gets clouded up in all the issues around it. And so that sort of pro bono assistance through Advocate, through Support Through Court, through CLIPS, all of those schemes is an absolute delight as far as a judge trying a case is concerned.
And talking of delights, do you have a favourite pro bono story that you could share with us?
I do, and although it is a true story, it didn't happen to me. It happened a very long time ago when I started doing pro bono work, which wasn't in those days through Advocate, it was through the Bar Pro Bono Unit and through FRU, the Free Representation Unit. A friend of mine also had a case in what was then called the Industrial Tribunal, which makes me sound about 100 years old. But he went to the tribunal and was doing his best for his client, and the tribunal said, well, thank you very much. could you hand up that document, please? So he stepped out from behind the table and went towards the table at which the tribunal was sitting and tripped and fell flat on his face in front of them, looked up to be met with, "Thank you, but we don't require that level of formality in this tribunal." And it's haunted me ever since, because I'm always conscious that one day I'm going to fall flat on my face and I won't be met with such a generous and funny response if I do.
Thank you, Maura. Maura, what would you say to those thinking of doing pro bono work, but also thinking that in view of the current challenges, it might be a bit too much?
I think somebody starting off is unlikely, frankly, to be so busy that they don't have any time to spare. And I know we're going to come back to this at the end, but it's worth remembering that what Advocate is pushing at the moment is the idea that everybody does 25 hours of pro bono work in the next year or so to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Advocate. Now, 25 hours is half an hour a week. So I don't believe that anybody starting off these days doesn't have a bit more time than that to spare. So that's one reason why they should do it, because they can, frankly. The second reason, as I say, is it's experience, and it may not be experience in the world in which you're working directly. And anything that broadens your experience is a useful and valuable thing to gain for yourself. So I think it cuts both ways. I think you can do something for the person who needs to be represented, but I think you can enhance your own skills and broaden your own experience by doing it.
And there are many, many barristers who've been doing pro bono work for a very long time and continue to do so. And it's really been for the benefit of the legal profession as a whole.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody needs me to tell them that lawyers are not necessarily the most popular group of people in the country. Mm. And if the public really knew quite how much lawyers do, both in representing the public pro bono and also in training the more junior members of the profession, training here and overseas, I think if we got the message out so that the public knew how much more we did, or how much more the profession does, I think we might just drag our reputation up a little bit as well. So that's also something that could be very beneficial.
And actually doing the pro bono work through Advocate is important, because Advocate do have a high profile and people do know of the very good reputation in trying to get those who need it, that assistance in court.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think is very helpful for people who are on the edge of thinking, should I do it or not? And perhaps are a little bit nervous, thinking, well, I don't know the first thing about that area of law. They should realise that Advocate is not going to just give them a piece of paper and send them off. They're going to be told, they're going to be supported. They will have the ability to ring somebody, to discuss the case, to ask for advice. They're not going to be thrown in at the deep end and sent off to do something that they simply cannot do. I mean, Advocate has a duty to the people it represents as well as to the lawyers that it uses. And they work very hard to make sure that people are matched to the level of case or hearing that they can do. So if anybody's on the verge of doing it, they shouldn't not do it because they think, oh my goodness, I'm going to be left high and dry. You won't be. There is always support. There is always somebody to speak to and discuss the case with.
And it's also a great way of becoming familiar with different areas of law, but also familiar with peers, being able to speak to and learn from each other. That's also important, isn't it? A big part of how Advocate do their work. Absolutely.
If you imagine the pupillage system in which a very junior person has a mentor, supporter, somebody who tells them what might happen, what might go wrong, what might go right. They don't necessarily teach you the law, but they teach you all the surrounding pieces of information that you need to know. And Advocate provides that sort of support. You will be put in contact with somebody more senior. That is another connection for you within the profession, as well as somebody who will support you through the case that you're actually going to do for Advocate.
Maura, you've spoken about those who are just starting out in practice, getting involved in pro bono work. What do you say to those who've been practicing for some time?
Again, it's there's two sides of the same coin. The one is you're giving back, you're doing something for the public. But the second is actually, when you think about it, you can use it to your own advantage because you're broadening your skills, you're broadening your experience. If, for example, you're about to apply for Silk, you can use the work you've done for Advocate on your application form. The QCA will now consider pro bono cases. And so if you are a, I don't know, medical negligence practitioner and you're applying for Silk, you could also be able to put on your form that you've done pro bono work in employment or family in some other area, as well as your own areas of specialism, because that gives you a broader range of experience. It's a good thing to put on a form. So it's both sides of the same coin. Do it because it's a good thing to do and you're giving something back, but also because you will gain from it by way of experience and broadening your skills.
And we've talked also about getting involved and the sort of mentoring or the support Advocate can provide. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, Advocate have fairly recently started and are going to push through more next year a scheme called Collaborate, which is a mentoring scheme which does enable people with either very little experience generally or very little experience in a particular field to speak to others who know more about that area of work. And so, as you said before, it introduces people to their peers, it introduces junior people to more senior people, introduces senior people to more junior people, all of which is a good thing. And so it's not just learning about a different area of law, it's learning about other people and their interests and their commitments. And so if genuinely pro bono work isn't for you in the sense of picking up a case and going to a tribunal and doing it, don't underestimate the fact that you can do it more generally within the public. You can advocate for your own charity, for a cause in which you're interested. Lots of people at the moment are putting an awful lot of effort into advocating on behalf of judges in Afghanistan, particularly women judges. And that's not pro bono in the sense of signing up to advocate, but it is pro bono in the sense that Advocate would support anybody doing that sort of work. And we all, frankly, ought to be doing it.
And Maura, could you tell us a little bit about the pro bono work that you are doing, whether it's here or abroad?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think probably without very much public recognition, do an awful lot of pro bono work, whether they're still in practice or on the bench, because they train. They do advocacy training for junior members of the profession. People put an awful lot of time and effort into that. Equally, lots of judges and senior advocates do training for other judges here and internationally. And so lots of us get great pleasure out of training internationally, but also realise that we are doing something that's good, that supports the rule of law, that builds capacity in countries that don't have necessarily quite so sophisticated systems of training and judicial education as we do. And so there's lots of that work going on, as you know, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in large numbers of African countries, the Caribbean, all over the world. There's advocacy training, judicial training, capacity building.
And you do that pro bono, and it has been an experience for you just to be able to be involved and no doubt the learning that's come from it from those countries.
Absolutely. And it's a two-way street. I did some judicial training for Mexican judges earlier this summer and learned a great deal actually about the system of restorative justice that's being introduced in the Mexican courts, which is very different from anything we have here, much more far-ranging than anything we have here. And all of it is A, great fun, but B, educational for me as well as for everybody else.
It's great to hear actually the the experience itself can be great fun, and that's important, isn't it? Because although it's hard work, there's also a lot of learning in doing pro bono work, and advocates certainly provide a very supportive set-up team to be able to allow that work to continue and for barristers to enjoy it.
Absolutely. Great support, a great feeling of fellowship, to use an old-fashioned term, and if you're very lucky, lots of biscuits.
Maura, it's been an absolute privilege talking with you today, and thank you, of course, so much for your support for Advocate.
No. Well, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody at Advocate, both for the friendship and support over the years, not just to me, but to everybody else who's done work for them, but also for the work they do for the public and the work they do for the profession, giving people the chance to give back and have fun whilst they're doing it. So here's to another 25 years. Thank you.